Here, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge round of applause for them, please. Just to add, Dr. Rao would also be leading in the middle, so has some other agenda plans, so please don't be scared if he walks up in the middle and plans to leave here. That is already pre-planned. Please.
Good evening. I'm glad I didn't have to do the introductions because, the clock has already started ticking. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow design enthusiasts, welcome to this thought-provoking panel discussion on shifting design vibes, a mix of traditional and technology. In today's rapid changing world, design plays a pivotal role in shaping our experiences from the products we use to the spaces we inhabit.
Hello.
This discussion will explore the exciting fusion of traditional design sensibilities with a cutting-edge technology, a convergence that's redefining aesthetics and functionality. Our panelists, experts in their respective fields, bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the stage. We aim to uncover insights how this dynamic interplay between the old and the new is not just reshaping design, but also enhancing our connection to culture, craftsmanship, and innovation. We delve into the intriguing conversation. I encourage all of you to actively participate and ask questions and share your perspectives. So let's embark on a journey through intricate blend of tradition and technology in design and discover the possibilities it holds for our creative future. My first question is to Sonali. How do you define traditional and technology in context of design and how they are evolving to create new design trends?
Thank you, Deben, and thank you for having me here. When you sort of, these topics came and I was going to be involved in this discussion, I said this is really up my sleeve. So I think this question is very pertinent in today's, the way we are today. Because according to me, tradition is what we have. Tradition is what our socio-cultural background is. Tradition is what the geographical context and the climatic context that we are in. All that contributes to what we call, what builds the tradition. What is today is that because we live in a compressed world where information flow is back and forth, it's a very easy flow, and there is a lot of exchange of information. The definition of a society has started changing. The aspirations of the user group has also started changing, and there has been a lot of integration with what is going on elsewhere. And that's where the technology part comes in. So imbibing a different culture, imbibing newer technologies is what the new aspiration is. And there's nothing wrong in that. However, there has to be a balance between what I call the two T's, tradition and technology. And unless we have understood our tradition, our, in architecture I would say the vernacular, the crafts, the arts, everything that was historic, unless we have a deep understanding of the nature of these things and why something is there or not there, we would never be able to synthesize correctly the inclusion of the outside factors, the different cultures and the newer technologies. So according to me, the synthesis comes from a deep understanding of your own first. and then to see where you bring in the outside factors or the technology and then start synthesizing it. And today, I mean, I would say that in the olden days, the institutions of a society really defined the urban form. I did my thesis on Kashmiri Gate, and I did a study, it was not a stylistic study, it was an anthropological study over a period of 180 years, where I studied the institutions of a society and how the urban form was impacted over a period of 180 years. And the whole story was, you could tell the whole story of a place from these things. However, today, that is not possible because we are in a rapidly transiting society. And unless we define the values, it would be in a very chaotic kind of a state which we can get into. So the synthesis will come from a deep understanding and imbibing the culture with sensitivity. However, I have to say that inclusion of of technology is a given now, and it cannot be disputed.
So Siddharth, can you share some examples of design projects that successfully blended traditional and technological elements, which made these projects stand out?
Yeah, I will give you just one example. Do you all know that there are, in terms of number of air conditioners, there are 2.5 crore ACs in India as of now. And in the next 20 years, the number of air conditioners in this country is going to go 10 times. So there will be 25 crore air conditioners running in India in 20 years from now. Just imagine the kind of energy consumption that will happen. These are estimates by World Bank and different industry estimates. So we should understand that when there are 10 times more number of air conditioners, the kind of energy that will be consumed, can we do something by using technology to prevent the heat losses, right? If I look at the traditional walling materials where I come from, we used to use clay bricks, and the thermal insulation is very poor in clay bricks. We, for example, manufacture something called aerated autoclave concrete blocks, where the heat transmission is very low. And Government of India, they understood this point that number of ACs are going to go 10 times. So in 2018, they came up with something called building code, where they defined the transmittance value of the building. And they set a limit of 15, that RETV of a building should not cross 15. And you'll be surprised to know that clay bricks, the traditional walling material, has a RETV value of 20 if you make a building using clay bricks. The transmittance is very high, so the building is not insulated, and the air conditioning cost and the intensity will be much higher. So one example of technology where a traditional walling material got replaced by a new walling material, and also which is relevant in the modern times when the air conditioning is going to go 10 times, is an example in front of us. And you will be very happy to know that our industry has grown hugely in the last 15 years. 15 years back, nobody knew about AAC blocks or AAC panels. And now, 7 or 8 out of every 100 homes in India are made using AAC blocks. Roughly 5 lakh homes are made in every year in India using a material which is much more better insulator and prevents air conditioning costs. So these are the silent revolutions which are taking place in the country. Not mass media might not be aware of this, but it's a silent revolution. So this is one example where technology can help a lot in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of efficient usage.
Great, thanks. George, your views on this as a sustainability expert?
Very good evening to each and every one gathered here. Thanks, Deben, for the question. So when I look at examples, let me put across, since I represent US Green Building Council, let me put across two examples, two projects per se. First one, when you look at an international project, there is a project, the Museum of Future, which is in Dubai. Some people may have gone and visited it as well. You can see a lot of mix over there in terms of the traditional aspects as well as the technology aspects over there. In terms of traditional, the traditions of Middle East region has been showcased in the architectural design of that project. And as you see a lot of videos as well of that, a lot of materials, a lot of machinery, and in fact a lot of new technology has been utilized in that project as well. Coming to an Indian example in terms of project, it would be CSC House, that is the Calcutta Energy Supply Corporation. It's a 80-year-old heritage building, and that had got LEED Platinum certified. Basically what they did is that they completely changed the HVAC systems. They did a lot of iterations in terms of their facilities. All these changes had been done, and that is the reason why they were able to do a lot of good performance, though being a heritage building. So these are a few examples when we look at the mix of tradition as well as technology.
Thanks, George. Mr. Rao, what are the key challenges that designers face when trying to combine traditional and technology-driven design approaches, and how they can overcome these challenges?
Good evening, everybody. I think we are living in very difficult times these days, because on the one hand, we want to move forward into the future with modern technologies. Whereas on the other hand, we are talking about climate change, we are talking about our roots, our traditions, and how do we fight this battle of increasing temperatures. So I think this is a very, very difficult challenge when architects have to design. Can I avoid air conditioning? It's just not possible. And my friend here says that the number of air conditioners are going to increase by 10 times. So that's a huge figure. So you can imagine the temperature rise, the climate change effects that this is going to have in terms of the carbon footprint that it's going to give. But at the same time, how do we really build, how do we design, what materials do we use? Because today there are many gadgets where you have a 3-star rating or 5-star rating, where you can say that yes, this is a greener product as compared to a single star, and therefore let me use it. But when it comes to building materials, we still have not yet reached there where we don't have the carbon rating for the building materials. So should I go in for this kind of a tiling, or should I go in for a stone flooring, or what should I do? So there are issues and challenges in terms of choice of materials to make our buildings more greener, and also in terms of the kind of cities that we are living in, where we have limited land available. So you have to go high rise, you have to become more dense. So you have to go in for more energy intensive building design. So how do you bring in tradition, and how do you marry tradition with modern technology? That's a big challenge. So you have to depend more and more on modern technology. So you can't always have daylight. So even in the middle of the day, you close all the doors and windows and put your air conditioning on, and then you have your conference or your meeting or your office or whatever. So you can't really, knowing fully well, you can't really use daylight to that extent. So probably we are doing a lip service to tradition in terms of the kind of motifs that we use on the carpets or on the curtains, or things of that sort, which are very, very perhaps inconsequential. Yes, we are using jute instead of some other kind of a material and things of that sort, but is that enough? I think it is not. So we are doing a kind of lip service to tradition in terms of using certain motifs or certain patterns or certain materials in the interiors, but in the larger context of design of the building itself, we are not in a position to really incorporate all those climate sensitive principles in terms of orientation and all that kind of stuff, and also in terms of the kind of greenery that you need to have around the buildings, the choice of species that you need to have. It is good to say that you need to have more shade, but then where is the place for us to plant the right kind of trees and so on and so forth. So there are very many challenges, and the designer confronts these challenges on a daily basis. So unless and until there is a major paradigm shift in our way of life, and the way in which we look not just at buildings but look at cities and human settlements as a whole. It is only then that we will be able to bring about some change in the design vibes as you call it.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Kuldeep, can you share some examples of design trends or movements that embody this mix of traditional and technology, and what insights can we gain from these examples?
Going for more energy intensive
design vibes
building design. So
have
how do
been
you
around
bring in
greenery and have
tradition?
been around cooling, as we say that global warming is a big problem now, and everyone is trying to solve this problem by policies, by technologies, by architectural design as we go. And I think taking forward greenery as one aspect, it has been into our tradition, into our history. We have been living into forests, then moving to river valleys, living into agriculture, and then greenery moved to our communities as parks. I think it's high time now that we bring greenery into our buildings, and we're not only talking about greenery as green plants, but we are also talking about green design, which is the energy efficiency and all those aspects. But what greenery as little plantation or plants work is not only about bringing in green into the building, but what it also does is it brings in certain cooling aspects by the way of transpiration. It also brings in certain calmness into the people who are capturing the space by the end users. And taking it forward, this is what a lot of designers around the world have also been trying now. Nowadays we see a lot of green facades being talked about, energy efficient facades, incorporating greenery being talked about. So this is something that we need to incorporate into our designs for sure. Another aspect of cooling, which we say, and we touched upon the topic of air conditioning. Air conditioning is the major source of power consumption for all the buildings, and we need to make sure how do we reduce that, because that is where all the energy is going into, the bulk of the energy required by the buildings. As he said, that it's going to be 10 times in terms of energy consumption. I was reading that the domestic air conditioning demand is going to surpass overall demand of Africa for India. So that means that air conditioning of India is going to surpass the overall demand of Africa as a subcontinent in coming years. So that's a massive demand for energy. And cooling is something that we need to work on as designers. And cooling has been into traditions of, if we look into all desert architecture, we talk about jalis, we talk about jharokas, all those things which kind of reflects our tradition into cooling technologies, into design. We need to bring in now technologically oriented cooling design into our space planning, into our buildings, and I think that is where the solution lies. Urban heat islands, global warming, this is something that we have now started talking about and now starting incorporating into our designs, but somewhere long back into our tradition, these have always been there and being solved about by the technology that existed at that point of time. Now we have further more enhanced technologies, so we need to incorporate them and solve it. So we've got glass as major element of building facade these days, but we have high performance glasses, we have glasses now which incorporate solar PVs into them so that it can generate electricity, generate energy, as well as provide shading or save some energy for the buildings. So all these technologies needs to be incorporated into buildings, which can lead to the better future for us.
And so from AC, I moved to the vertical transportation, I think, which is the second power guzzler for any building. So Aditya, you represent the vertical transportation industry. So tell us how has design innovation impacted the functionality and aesthetics of modern elevators? And what role does technology play in elevating the elevator experience?
Thanks for that question, sir. If I may take this permission, can I speak in Hindi, if that's okay? P.S.N in Delhi, and I would like
All
to
of
speak
us.
in Hindi, if that's okay.
Right. You speak in any language.
Thank you so much. Elevator, escalator, travelator. It's no more just vertical transportation. It's more of infra travel, as I say. It's all about आप एक बिल्डिंग में किस तरीके से जा रहे हो, कैसे ट्रांसपोर्ट कर रहे हो. And elevators, खासतौर से किसी भी बिल्डिंग के अंदर they are one of the highlights. As far as my interaction with architects have gone, or builders have gone. कहीं ना कहीं अब इनसे elevators से expectations बढ़ रही है. They use it as a masterpiece in terms of the building. For an example, मुंबई में एक होटल है सहारा, right next to the airport. And while Victora was OEM to Schindler, Mr. Subrata Roy Sahara asked elevators that could really highlight the building at the time. So वहाँ पे अगर आप देखें तो उनकी जो 3 एलिवेटर्स हैं जो लॉबी में है, जब वो एक साथ एक स्टॉप पे होती है, एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे होती है, तो दे डिजाइन लाइक अ फुल ग्लोब, वर्ल्ड मैप बनता है उसमें. सो दैट इज हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट, और दैट इज द चेंज दैट एन एलिवेटर डिजाइन कैन ब्रिंग इन योर मास्टरपीस, व्हाटएवर यूर डिजाइनिंग. आजकल मल्टीनेशनल कंपनीज भी कहीं ना कहीं इस बात को समझती है दैट डिजाइन हैज रियली बिकम वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट, और इसीलिए ऑप्शंस भी आने लगे हैं. व्हाट वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड इज, एज फार एज दीज एलिवेटर्स आर कंसर्न, यहाँ पे जितने भी ऑडियंसेस हैं, एनालिस्ट हैं, हम एलिवेटर्स को ऑलमोस्ट वी यूज देम एवरी डे इन सम ऑफ द अदर बिल्डिंग और सम ऑफ द अदर यूजर्स. सेफ्टी ही इतनी इम्पोर्टेंट है, चाहे वो एलिवेटर की हो, चाहे वो स्विच बोर्ड्स की हो, चाहे वो सीलिंग फैन की हो, बट अ लॉट ऑफ R&D गोज इनटू. एंड क्योंकि हम इंडियन मार्केट की बात कर रहे हैं, तो इंडियन मार्केट साथ ही साथ थोड़ा कॉस्ट सेंसिटिव भी है. इट्स अ लिटिल कॉस्ट सेंसिटिव. सो द काइंड ऑफ expense that goes into the R&D of making an elevator safe, or for that matter any electronic gadget or anything that's related to a building goes, तो वो कॉस्ट वापस निकालना कई बार बिल्डर के लिए बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है. समटाइम्स यू नीड टू जस्टिफाई कि ये कॉस्ट क्यों ज़्यादा जा रहा है. सो बहुत ज़रूरी है कि डिज़ाइन को कहीं ना कहीं सेफ्टी के साथ और कॉस्ट के साथ भी वर्कआउट किया जाए, सो दैट इट इज एक्चुअली सस्टेनेबल फॉर द एंड यूज ऑल्सो. हैविंग सेड दैट, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है दैट एस्थेटिकली एलिवेटर्स काफ़ी ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट हो गई हैं. स्पेशियस होनी चाहिए. दे शुड बी दे शुड बी एबल टू लिफ्ट योर, जो भी उसके अंदर पैसेंजर्स जा रहे हैं. साथ ही साथ अब टेक्नोलॉजी का इंटीग्रेशन, यू जस्ट आस्क्ड अ वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन अबाउट टेक्नोलॉजी एंड ट्रेडिशन प्लान. सो एलिवेटर इज अ वेरी फैंटास्टिक एग्जांपल ऑफ किस तरीके से एलिवेटर रियली एनग्रास्प टेक्नोलॉजी इन टर्म्स ऑफ, फॉर एग्जांपल डिस्पैचेस. आप अपने ऑफिस में आप एंड्रॉयड ऐप से अपनी एलिवेटर अपने टाइम के हिसाब से बुला सकते हैं. Each office can have their own access time. Similarly, sustainability के ऊपर अगर बात करें तो there are regenerative motors, electricity save करती है, बहुत सारी चीज़ें. So हम ये सब करते हैं, all of us do that, and we try that design बड़े अच्छे से हम उसमें कर सकें. डिज़ाइन के साथ जैसे मैंने बोला सेफ्टी, कॉस्ट, ये सब कर सकें. सबसे बड़ा सवाल यहाँ पे ये होता है कि किस तरीके से जो एंड यूजर है वो इस बात को अप्रिशिएट करता है कि हाँ ये डिज़ाइन अच्छा है, लेकिन at the same time there has been a cost and effort gone into it. And specifically when you see at the paradigm जहाँ पे अब इंडियन मार्केट भी कहीं ना कहीं, या इंडियन कंज्यूमर्स जो है, now they expect very much the global standard into everything, right? So now it's not just up to Europe or the Americas कि भाई there's something different, or in Dubai for that matter. हमारे यहाँ दिल्ली, बॉम्बे, हैदराबाद have some very good buildings for that matter, very good infrastructures, and मुझे लगता है that is something that's very encouraging for people like us from different industries. AC हो, elevator हो, switch gear हो, कुछ भी हो, तो कहीं ना कहीं it's something that
Thank you so much. I'm aware that Mr. Rao has to leave early. I'll put my next question to him. You've been associated with SPSF. So how can education institutions and design programs adapt to equip future designers with skills needed to excel in this evolving design landscape?
Thank you. We have been for quite some time tuning our future budding architects to newer ways of design. Of course, in the past, we've been talking about designing with nature, using the traditional materials and the fundamental principles of good design. These have always been a part of training, not only at SPA Delhi, but also at the various 400-odd architecture colleges across the country. But then now the focus is becoming more and more on how do you design green buildings, how do you design with appropriate technology, how do you design with prefabricated buildings, because today we are also, as we talk, I think in the next couple of days, the G20 is currently going on, and there is also a session on G20 on standards, and we are now in an age of standardization. We want everything to be done very quickly. Nobody has the time for a la carte buildings. We all want something which is a standardized fast food kind of stuff. So prefabrication, and we have a friend here who is also going to talk about prefabrication, I think. So the government of India has these 6 lighthouse projects where there is a global housing technology challenge that was put up recently, and we're talking about bringing in new technologies where you can build fast and build in a standardized manner. With little scope for innovation in that sense, in a different sense of the term. So students have to be trained to this changing way in which the world is going. Otherwise, you will become a misfit in the industry. So therefore, today, when we studied architecture, and things were very, very different. Today, architecture students have to learn much, much more. In terms of technology, not just how to design, but also with what materials, with what is going to be accepted in the market. So it is a big challenge for trainers like us, for teachers like us, and also it is more amount of time to be put in, more amount of effort to be put in by students, and they are of course learning a lot by themselves, because today there is a lot of material that's available on the net. And in addition to that, there are also a lot of short training programs that are being conducted by the SPA itself. Use of drones, use of various kinds of things. There is also the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs is actually funding us for doing programs for architects on sustainable architecture and so on and so forth. So there is something called a cool action plan by the Ministry of Environment, which is also there. So there are these programs where we are offering new softwares and how to use them and where to use them and all that kind of thing. So I think we are in very, very exciting times, very challenging times, and students are actually sometimes, they know perhaps something more than what we also know at many times. I should admit that. So therefore, it's a churning that we are going through, and it's not only the teacher teaching the student, but the student also, the teacher also learning from the student. That is also very important. So these are exciting times in which we are in, and I think education, capacity building, training, whatever you may call it by whatever term, that is happening, and that will continue to happen. And this is where also various professions are now actually engineering, technology, landscape architecture, building design, architecture, these are all actually merging, they are coming together. That is also another thing that we are looking at. It's not just those silos, but then how do you look at it in a more holistic manner?
So I have a question, being an architect myself, in terms of, I remember when I was studying architecture, Mecca was the book we used to refer, and it was complete British architecture we were taught.
Yeah.
Are we also teaching our students now in terms of, we talk about heritage conservation, we talk about adaptive reuse. are we also training them to learn what we've done hundreds of years back, which was much more sustainable than what we're doing now?
Absolutely. I've been on various committees of the Council of Architecture and the AICTE and blah, blah, blah. And I've been telling them that, look, the 4 volumes of McKay's Handbook on Construction, things of that sort, they're all fine. But are we really doing King Post Trust and Queen Post Trust today? So the question is that today the students have got many more things to learn. They need to understand the past, they need to understand the world, and they also need to understand what's happening here today. Things like a pronged wall, there are all kinds of things which we've all studied, and students still go through that because that's a part of the syllabus which the Council of Architecture puts on us. So I've been telling the Council of Architecture also that it's high time that we take a relook at some of these things, and then we have to completely redo these, because we don't build many of these things, or many of these things are not relevant in our context. But of course, Indian architects from India are going to the US and going several other places, they're building there. So how do you build at minus 10 degrees? It's also important for them to know. So today there is actually so much more for all of us to know, both the teacher and the student. So that's the way it is.
Thank you so much. I'm just changing the format slightly since Mr. Rao has to leave early. Any questions from audience? He can take it now, and then we can excuse him. Any questions for Mr. Rao? Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
So by 2070, India is supposed to be zero emission, which basically means that by the time we are all going elderly, or anybody who is already 23 years old, they comes to retire and become 60 plus, they will have to necessarily get into something which is a zero emission building. So with that perspective, that it's not like we have too much of a time, we have to move from current heavily concretized buildings which are not very friendly environmentally in another 50 years to a very sustainable mode. How much are we prepared within the architecture fraternity, the construction fraternity, to move for that kind of a construction?
Yeah, more than that, the architects are all prepared. But then the clients who want the buildings to be made, they all want air conditioning. They all want several other things which are not really carbon friendly, or so therefore that is where the challenge lies. For a long time I sat in an office which never had an air conditioner. But today the problem is that my home is air conditioned, my car is air conditioned, my office is air conditioned. Everybody is living only in air conditioning, and we can't live without air conditioning. We've transformed ourselves and our lifestyles and our attitudes in such a manner that I'm very sorry to say that we can't live without air conditioning. So how do we get back? Our ancestors and our parents and we ourselves in our childhood, we've lived without air conditioning. We've been sweating a lot, which is very good for the body. It's not just the architectural fraternity, but every one of us need to learn to live without air conditioning, without all the modern gadgets that we have, climb up the stairs, not use so many elevators. So all that kind of stuff is there. So are we all prepared? That is the larger question. Architects will certainly design, but then they also want their fees, so they will design the way in which the client wants. So this is a very big question, and the answers are clearly not there.
So I think, it's also related to the behavior and, your lifestyle thing.
Lifestyle change.
Yeah. So in my last panel discussion in Mumbai, so we had a panelist who said, all of us are wearing suits. And the air conditioning has to be at 22 degrees. If you don't wear suits, you can have the temperature at 25, 26 degrees. So I think you're right, childhood we hardly knew what AC was.
A loosely fitting cotton white kurta and pajama is the description.
Exactly.
For the Indian context.
So thank you so much for your insights, and as I promised, I'll...
Thank you so much. I think, you've done me a great favor today. Thank you very much, and thank you all, and sorry for exiting in a very unceremonial manner. My apologies. Thank you so much. It's been great having you.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. So continuing with our discussion, my next question is to Sonali. In what ways can traditional craftsmanship and cultural influences enrich digital design? Are there any specific cultural elements that you find particularly inspiring in design?
I think design is something which one sort of, it expands the horizon of the mind. And the traditional learnings, I would say, it's not only the elements, it's the spirit and the learnings is what actually is of great importance as we go forward. I'll just give you an example. Coming back, way back, let's say in the early 60s, V.V. Doshi built set. And I think it has such a timeless design. And his entire take of the concept of theft was emanating from traditional concepts. We had the North Light because we are in the northern hemisphere. We have deep verandas and shading on the south side. They created a central space, deconstructed the corridor, and a central space which is equivalent to the way a central courtyard functions, where all the students saw each other, interacted with each other. There was steps. So I'm just saying that though he used the elements of a traditional sort of architecture, but it was the learning of these and the way he imbibed them into a future, which was at that time set, was fantastic. Similarly, I think recently we've done a university where we have tried to imbibe the learnings again of a traditional elements. We are looking at a jali. We have glass because we want the sunlight, but we need the shading devices. So we've used the traditional sandstone jalis as a complete facade. We have created a podium, which is a 9-meter high podium, and then there is a huge undercroft, which is a completely shaded area, which has a lot of biophilia, water elements, and a lot of natural cooling happens over there because of passage of air, free passage of air, which picks up the moisture from the water, the plants cool it down, and it's a great area for the students to come together, and it has become an alternate learning space, which is an extremely successful space. So I think it is the learning of these traditional elements and the way you imbibe them into your projects and your design is where you create. I mean, if you see this university that we've done, it's an extremely contemporary approach. It is a state-of-the-art university. However, the success of that university belies in the imbibing of the traditional spirit.
Thank you so much. And the next question is to Kuldeep.
I also want to add about the elevators, when you were talking about the vertical movement and the experience of the elevator. We have recently done a project where it's a glass elevator, but it is not a traditional glass elevator. It's just a very thin glass wall and it's just a platform that moves up and down. And it's sitting inside a courtyard. So while you move up and down in the house, instead of being inside a closed area, you're actually looking at this green wall and art and sculptures all around you. And you go up and down. So idea was that when you move, you create an experience which we've used the design as the element and the architecture to create that element, and the elevator almost disappears as an experience.
So very interesting example, and I'll just ask Aditya in terms of you spoke about Sahara Star. Not a great fan of that building, but any similar kind of example you can share where the way Sonali created that elevator and it's just connecting you with the nature and with the surroundings. Any example you have? Or do you come across such requirements?
So we're actually doing an elevator in our own property. Victora is also into hotel. So we've just bought up a property by the name of Juna Mahal, that's in Ranthambore. It's a very Spanish design hotel that we're coming up. And
Spanish?
Yeah, it's got the architecture that's inspired by Spain. So
In Rajasthan?
Yeah, in Rajasthan. But it's a contemporary kind of design. The architect convinces us, and because there are many architects, so I would, and there might like this, so I'm not going to say anything about it.
No, I'm just wondering about the brief to create a Spanish.
Yeah, but I would really, I would say that if you visit, it's a wonderful property that's coming up. But coming back to the point of elevator, so what we're doing is that we have the presidential villa in the hotel. So it's got its own private pool and a lawn is there, and it's a 2-bedroom villa. It's a 2-story building. And we're coming up with a similar aspect wherein we are trying to give a semicircular elevator. Our R&D is working on that. And on a similar basis, that it goes through the lawn. So it's a glass shaft, it's a glass hoistway with minimum metal or structural fittings over there. And as ma'am said, in a very, very similar nature, we are trying that the entire elevator merges into the greenery of the lawn with the architecture of the building. So when one travels, because it's got a painting on one side, it's something, I'll show you the photograph later, but it's something that really sets a mood, and it's going to be the memory. So the idea is that people click their selfies over there because it's a social media world that we have over here. So an elevator where people could click their selfie and remember that as a part of the property, right, on a similar fashion. So that's how we are trying to give different customizations.
Thanks so much. Kuldeep, next question is to you. What emerging technologies do you believe will have most significant impact on the future of design, and how can designers prepare these changes?
I think I'll answer that with different parts of the building and different technologies that are emerging into these different aspects of building. I think one is the nanotechnology in terms of building materials, wherein we are talking about nanofibers. We are talking about different reinforced kind of carbon materials which are now forming part of our new building materials. So I think nanotechnology is going to take a big leap in terms of the materials that are available for us to build the buildings, and that we will see into our built spaces. And depending on the purpose, these nanomaterials can be having more strength, or they can be having lesser emissions, or they can be having lesser embodied energies, which are the key aspects of green architecture as we see in the future. I think the second technology will be onto the construction side, which is our 3D printing technology that we are using nowadays to build buildings. We started making houses, some multi-storied also are looking at forming, some other aspects of the building. I've also heard that NASA is preparing to build 3D homes also in Mars now. They've kind of created some specimens for that by taking the Mars soil as a base material. So I think this is going to form base for the building construction, 3D technologies, so that we could construct faster, and we need a lot of houses, lot of buildings, especially in a country like India now. I think other bigger technology or emerging technology, of course, is the AI. We are living in the world of AI. That is, I think, much more to do with the user interface or the user, how he or she interacts with the space, or what space does to that user, or how much care or like how much interaction this technology can create with the user as an individual. I think that interaction between the space planning and the individual is going to take a big leap. We will be very, very individualized in terms of how we are interacting or what space is interacting to us through this technology.
So, you touched upon a very interesting thing, and just before this panel discussion, I was having a discussion with Siddharth on 3D printed homes. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you short because I'm aware of the time, and I have one more question for George. Siddharth, your views on the emerging technology, since you said that you built some houses and at a very affordable cost, which is very hard to believe, because I couldn't believe that 3D printing is a cheap thing, but Government of India promoting building of 3D houses is something which is very encouraging.
So actually it's 3D precast what we did. So as Professor Rao was mentioning that Government of India came up with 6 lighthouse projects where PM Modi had his 2 years back, he asked all the technology companies who are into construction space to come together, and there was some competition between all the people who wanted to, and 6 people got shortlisted. So we were one of the 6 selected, and we made 1,008 homes in Ranchi using 3D precast in a time of 1 year. So thankfully all the 6 guys actually completed 1,000 or across 1,000 homes. And there were 6 different technologies. We were one of them, and we had amazing experience with the government. They actually went all out to support companies like us, and we were able to deliver. In India, this was the largest 3D precast construction happened ever, and the rates which government gave was quite competitive, right? So at around 2,500 rupees per square feet, it's a all-inclusive house where EWS people can stay in Ranchi. So it was a government initiative, and thankfully all these technologies are now being made part of the BMTPC, now incorporating this into, as Professor Rao was mentioning, that G20 is happening, and they are going to make codes out of these 6 technologies.
I'm sorry, I have to cut you short. Last question to George. I'm sorry, George, you have to respond to very quickly. Sure. With shifting design bites and new technologies, how can we keep our focus, stroke progress on decarbonization? Can you share the sustainability trends right now? Very quickly.
Yeah, so basically what we have noticed, if you look at the global CO2 emissions in terms of the construction value chain, when you look at the design as well as the construction and the operations of buildings and the production of materials, you will notice that 40% of the entire global emissions is related to the production and production of the cement and steel industry. And if you see, 2/3 of it is coming from the developing, or rather we would say the emerging markets. Now what has the industry done for the past 2 decades for this? So there have been agencies, councils in place who have brought about, alongside with the architects, guidelines and scorecards in place so that you can include sustainability also into the design and construction. And when that happens, the architects and the designers, they look at ways in which how can we make our site sustainable. They look at reducing their air conditioning loads. They start looking at water conservation methods, how to tackle waste, and most importantly, they start demanding for better products, better materials. So when the demand for better materials come into play, manufacturers are then start to do their R&D, and they bring about better product lines. And ultimately, the raw materials extractor is also going to have to extract the materials in a much more better way so that they take care of the embodied carbon. So in this way, it's not a quick fix, but definitely we are as a community moving towards decarbonization by these sort of methods. And in fact, I would just give a few statistics in terms of in the Indian market. India is basically the third largest market for the international certification called LEED out of the 180 plus countries. So we are dead serious about it, and we are in fact leading the market in terms of LEED Zero. Out of these many countries, we are leading the market with most of the developers moving into their net zero plans. So as a community, we still have a lot of work to do. But yes, if we are stringent in our aspects and more disciplined, we'll be able to meet those carbon emissions or rather decarbonization goals and touch upon the ESG aspect as well.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm rushing this. Ladies and gentlemen, our discussion today has been an inspiring exploration of how traditional and technology-driven designs are converging to create a new design landscape. We've gained valuable insights from our esteemed panelists and explored the opportunities and challenges of this transformational shift. It's clear that we're living in an era where design is not limited by boundaries, but instead is a canvas where tradition and technology coexist harmoniously. As we conclude, I want to thank our panelists for their valuable contributions, and I also want to extend my gratitude to our engaged audience for their insightful questions and participation. As we leave this discussion, let's remember that the fusion of traditional craftsmanship, cultural richness, and technological innovation is not only shaping the aesthetics of our world, but also influencing how we interact with it. The conversation doesn't end here. It continues in our own exploration, creations, and dialogues. Together we can continue to shape the evolving design vibes and create a more vibrant and diverse design ecosystem. Thank you for being part of today's discussion, and I look forward to seeing how each of you contributes to this dynamic and ever-evolving design world. Thank you so much.